YouTube, Gallagher here, and welcome to a brand new video. In this video I'm going to be counting down the top 10 Sherlock episodes. Now Sherlock first aired on BBC One in 2010 and since then has had 13 episodes. So in today's video I'm going to be counting down my top 10 personal favourite. And yeah, do you like my new backdrop for my videos? If you do, please leave a like on this video. And yeah, subscribe if you already haven't. So, starting the list at number 10. So starting the list at number 10, we do have A Scandal in Belgravia. Now, A Scandal in Belgravia was the opening episode for Series 2 of Sherlock. And A Scandal in Belgravia I found a little bit overrated, possibly one of the greatest overrated episodes of Sherlock. However, it has some great moments in it, and it's earned its place at number 10. No one can forget one of the most iconic Sherlock moments ever. I am Sherlock. That moment will go down in Sherlock history. So, moving on to number 9. So at number 9, we do have The Abominable Bride. Now, The Abominable Bride was the 2016 New Year's Day special of Sherlock. And yeah, I find this episode very weird, as it all takes place in Sherlock's mind palace, as he tries to work out how Moriarty faked his death. And yeah, it was all pretty pointless, the episode, but I find this episode incredibly experimental and incredibly well written. It's very different to any other Sherlock episodes, as it's done properly, being based in Victorian times rather than contemporary London. So yeah, that's why it's in its place at number 9. So, on to number 8. So at number 8, we do have The Great Game. Now, The Great Game was the Series 1 finale for Sherlock, and The Great Game is absolutely stunning. So much happens in this episode, including the introduction to Jim Moriarty, and no one can forget that encounter of the swimming pool between Sherlock and Moriarty. I find this episode very claustrophobic, very gripping, and very good generally, and that's why it's in its place at number 8. So, on to number 7. Number 7, we do have The Empty Hearse. Now, The Empty Hearse was the opening episode for Series 3 of Sherlock, and The Empty Hearse is such a clever and a great episode in my opinion. The Empty Hearse answers so many questions, including how Sherlock faked his death. And yeah, it was a brilliant conclusion, as there were 2 years between the Series 2 finale and the Series 3 opener. And yeah, it was great to see how Sherlock faked his death, as it stopped fans from beating up Stephen Moffat and begging him for answers. So yeah, The Empty Hearse, a brilliant episode with a brilliant plot, and yeah, great in my opinion. So moving on to number 6. So at number 6, we're going back one episode to the Series 2 finale, The Reichenbach Fall, and The Reichenbach Fall is a brilliant Sherlock episode, just like all other Sherlock episodes. Just a side note here, I like all Sherlock episodes. It's been incredibly hard to make this list. So The Reichenbach Fall, a stunning Sherlock episode and a great way to end Series 2. In this episode we see Sherlock fake his death, we see Moriarty die. Yes, Moriarty died properly. Moriarty was in it from 2010 to 2012 alive, then in it from 2012 to 2017 dead. So his dead appearances were longer than his alive appearances. But The Reichenbach Fall, a brilliant episode of Sherlock, and yeah, absolutely stunning, action-packed, and great. So, on to number 5. So at number 5, we do have the Series 4 episode of Sherlock, episode 2, The Lying Detective. Now, The Lying Detective, I find incredibly clever. It's a brilliant episode in Sherlock, and yeah, this actually saw John and Sherlock back together for once, and yeah, I love the chemistry between Sherlock and John in this episode. It is absolutely brilliant, and it is also the introduction to Sherlock's secret sister, which I find absolutely great, and the cliffhanger for this episode is absolutely amazing. So, on to number 4. So at number 4, we do have the Series 3 finale, His Last Vow. Now, His Last Vow is absolutely stunning. In this episode, we see the end to the Charles Augustus Magnuson story arc. And yeah, it's a great way to end that story arc. So brilliant, so amazing scenes in this, so amazing characterization. What a brilliant episode of Sherlock. I absolutely love the showdown between Sherlock and Charles in this episode. It is absolutely spectacular. And yeah, I love the scene with Mycroft in the helicopter. That is just brilliant. And so Mark Gatiss. So, moving on. So at number 3, we do have the final problem. Possibly the last ever episode of Sherlock. But this episode is brilliant. And if this is the last episode of Sherlock, it's a great way to end it. This episode is very clever, very good, very scary, and just absolutely amazing. In this story we see the adventures of Sherlock and John continue, and it ends Sherlock very nicely, if it is going to end, that is. Series 5, Benedict Cumberbatch did sign for. So yeah, the final problem, an absolutely stunning episode. We get to see a lot more of Mycroft in this episode, and yeah, a lot more chemistry between John and Sherlock, which would be the last chance to see it, if this is the last episode of Sherlock. So you don't want to hear me say all that. So at number 2, we do have A Study in Pink. Now, A Study in Pink was the first ever episode of Sherlock, and yet a great way to start Sherlock. This episode really did show off to the audience that Sherlock is incredibly clever and incredibly good. This was possibly one of the greatest Sherlock episodes ever, excluding number 1. And yeah, it's absolutely remarkable, I think, in a great way to introduce us to all the characters. And yeah, absolutely stunning in my opinion. A Study in Pink, just remarkable. Suckable. Before we get to number 1 though, let's count down some honourable mentions. So we do have The Blind Banker. An okay episode, possibly my worst episode of Sherlock, but there's some good scenes in it. We do have The Hounds of the Baskerville, a great episode in my opinion, but hasn't made it to the list, sadly. And then we do have The Six Fetchers, the Series 4 opener of Sherlock, which is good, very action-packed, but hasn't made it to the list as well. So what has made it to number 1? Well, there's only one possible candidate remaining. So at number 1, we do have The Sign of Free. Yes, The Sign of Free comes in at number 1. What a brilliant, absolutely brilliant episode of Sherlock this is. This is possibly one of the best things to come out of television ever. Even better than Torchwood Children of Earth. Even better than Doctor Who Faced the Raven. This is absolutely remarkable, The Sign of Free. Absolutely brilliant. It's centered around Sherlock being best man at John's wedding, Sherlock doing the speech, and yeah, it's absolutely brilliant in my opinion. So clever, so great, and yes, is absolutely remarkable in my opinion. So that is my list of top 10 Sherlock episodes. Please let me know what your favourite episode of Sherlock is in the comments below. And a shout out to Skessel Joe, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'll leave the link in the comments below. So until the next time, goodbye, and I am so sorry about the delay of this video, as I announced it about 5 videos ago that it will be my next video. So sorry about that. So goodbye!